Thanks for joining me for a battlefield tour of the Fredericksburg Battlefield. Well, we'll start our tour at the Visitor Center. Here at the Visitor Center, they have a lot of great displays about the battle and the history of the battle. It also has information about the people, displays of artifacts, paintings, uniforms. This is quite the museum and takes in 2 rooms at the Visitor Center. Now let's get into a little bit of history on the battle. The new Union commander who was appointed in 1862 was Ambrose Burnside. He had a plan to defeat the Confederate forces. He would go around them and cross the Rappahannock River at Fredericksburg using pontoon bridges. Well, his movement surprised the Confederate Army. He arrived at Fredericksburg undetected, but he had one problem. His pontoon bridges had not arrived on time. He had to wait for these bridges to be delivered. By the time they were delivered, the Confederate Army had moved to Fredericksburg. He established his headquarters at Chatham Manor, which sits on Stratford Heights, just across the river from the city of Fredericksburg. Chatham Manor is actually stop number 2 on the official battlefield tour, but I will not include it in this video because I made a separate video about Chatham Manor, which I will put a link to at the end of this video. On December 11th, 1862, Union artillery started bombarding the city of Fredericksburg. Then Burnside had his men start to construct the pontoon bridges across the Rappahannock River, but they were met with Confederate sharpshooters who started killing the engineers as they tried to build the bridge. Eventually, he had to make an amphibious landing to the other side of the Rappahannock River using some of these pontoon boats to take out the snipers that were in the city of Fredericksburg. Eventually, he was able to build his bridge across the Rappahannock River, and his forces entered the city of Fredericksburg. There was street-to-street fighting in Fredericksburg as Union forces pushed the Confederates out of the city. This is the first example of urban combat during the Civil War. After the Union Army had taken the city, they ransacked and looted the entire city. General Lee had set up the main Confederate defenses on the heights above Fredericksburg. Then, on December 13th, the Union Army attacked the Confederate positions in 2 different attacks. And these are the attacks that we will witness on the battlefield tour. So now let's begin the battlefield tour at stop number 1, the Sunken Road. I'm on the Fredericksburg Battlefield, walking along the Sunken Road. This is the site of some of the fiercest battle action during the Battle of Fredericksburg. This is the 1930s reconstructed wall along the Sunken Road. And here the Confederates made their stand against the Union Army as they tried to defeat them and move them out of Fredericksburg. This part of the reconstructed wall was done in 2004, and it looks quite a bit more substantial than the wall reconstruction that was done in the 1930s. This is the Innis House. It was actually here at the time of the Battle of Fredericksburg. And if you look inside, you can see bullet holes along the paneling inside the house. If you look at this map where I'm standing and then look down the street, the current view looks nothing like the time of the battle. This would have been an open field instead of a row of houses along the street. This is a section of the original Sunken Road and the wall. If you notice, you can't even see the wall, as this would have been what it would have looked like as the Union forces approached the road. The Confederate forces could have just stood up and shot them to pieces. I'm now walking along the original section of the Sunken Road. The wall next to me is original, and this would have been where the Confederate soldiers were standing as they fought in this battle. They had a great position compared to the Union Army that had to charge up this hill. Wave after wave of Union attacks on this position took place, leading to the defeat of the Union Army at this location. From the heights on this hill overlooking the Sunken Road, the Confederate artillery would have had an incredible view of the battlefield, and the shelling must have had just a devastating effect from here. Walking along the heights of the trail they have here at the Visitor Center, you gotta wonder just where the Confederate artillery positions were, but they have such an incredible view of the battlefield from up here. These Confederate cannons up here represent the battery that had commanding view of the battlefield. What an amazing sight that must have been. Now it's time to leave the Sunken Road and go to stop number 3 on the battlefield tour. Stop number 3 on the battlefield tour is Lee's command post. To get to the site of the command post, you must walk up a paved path to get there. Well, I'm at the Lee's command post, which is on top of Lee's Hill. Now this is quite a hike to get up here. They say it takes 20 minutes to get up here and get back, but I made it up here in less than 10 minutes. So although challenging, it wasn't too bad, even for an old guy like me. But from up here, they've got 2 cannons, and you can see a cannon position up here and get an idea of how far they were from Fredericksburg. Stop number 4 is the big gun at Howison Hill. These are the big guns on Howison Hill, although it looks like we only have one really big gun. From here, you really can't see anything but woods, but back then, they could have seen all the way down into Fredericksburg, where they could hit their targets and push back the Union lines. Now it's time to leave the big gun and go to stop number 5. This is the site of the Union breakthrough at the Battle of Fredericksburg. This is the only bright spot in the Union's day during the battle, when Pennsylvanians crashed through a lightly defended part of Jackson's line. Although they crashed through, they didn't last. Reserves for the Confederacy came forward and drove them back. This was the Union's only chance for victory, and it was crushed. The only thing to see when you get to this site are the 2 markers behind me. All along Lee Road, you can find markers for the Confederate trenches. I'm standing in front of part of Jackson's trenches. Well, we're at the last stop on the tour, Prospect Hill. This is where Jackson's forces were stationed. They have several cannon positions here to protect this area. And you can see the trench works in front of them where the cannons would have actually been positioned to protect them. Well, this is the last stop on the battlefield tour in Fredericksburg, so I hope you've enjoyed our visit to the battlefield. Now let's leave the battlefield park and go to the position where the cavalry was holding the right flank of the Confederate Army. I'm here at Pelham Corner, where the gallant Pelham and 1 cannon made a stand against the Union Army. This is the furthest point that I can find on the battlefield that's labeled with markers. And I'm here in search of where my ancestor, Adolphus P. Poole, was stationed with the 3rd Virginia Cavalry. Now the cavalry was behind me, just south of here, what's now along the old Richmond Road, or what they call Route 17. He was stationed somewhere in a 2-mile radius of here. This is where he would have been for the entire Battle of Fredericksburg.